All right, question to begin. Have any of you ever experienced a beautiful moment in life utterly ruined by something unexpected and revolting? Show of hands, yes. Has that happened to any of you? Yes. It happened to me this past Monday. I literally thought about the first thing that popped in my head was I can't wait to tell you guys this story. It has everything to do with our text. So here's what happened. We woke up Monday morning. Holly's brother, my wife Holly's brother, Casey, was in town with his son. We took the kids and the whole family went over to Legoland for the whole day. You've been to Legoland? It's pretty cool, right? See all the different variety of builds they got going on. It's fun. Even the kids that are old thought it was really cool, even though they're too cool for stuff like this. But the littles had a lot of fun, just in awe the whole time, right? Well, anyway, we get there early. That's what you do at these parks. You got to go early. We do some rides. Well, they do some rides. I hold all the stuff, right? We walk around, and it comes time for lunch. And we always go at Legoland to this burger place. It's so good. It's burgers. It's like the best food in the world, right? So cheeseburgers are wonderful. So we go to this burger place, and it's like the perfect time in Florida these past few weeks and even today, right? It's not too hot. It's not August hot, right? Yet, this is so nice to be outside. And even in like a sweatshirt, it's not crazy hot today. It was like 78, 79 degrees. We're walking up to this burger place. There's tables outside with nice umbrellas over them. And so we sit down in them. Like I think I'm watching some kids. Something catches my eye, and I kind of have my own moment that I'll tell you about in a minute. Half the people left to go order. I was still outside. And I'm noticing something I've never really noticed before. And I'm just like gripped by it. Like some of you who know me, like I can be kind of aloof to what's like right in front of me. What's going on. Just kind of awestruck wonder moment happened. It was all about crows. Like these nasty, scary movie birds that apparently hold grudges for generations, I'm told, from the first service. I'm like, are you kidding? Kill the bird. Like, they're crazy. Come on. Anyway, I'm sitting there, and the birds are hopping on top of these umbrellas. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, people are under them, right? And, of course, they're looking for scraps. Like, they're that kind of bird, like pigeons, like rats in the air, right? This is what they are. That's what the crow is to me. And anyway, right in front of me, about a distance from me to this row right here, there's a table, umbrella, it's in the sun. And these birds hop over and they hop into the sun. And I just have this like worshipful, serene, like I'm awestruck moment just looking at this bird. Because I just thought, crows, rats in the air, they're just black. Bleh, they're hateful birds. I hate them. Whatever. They get in the sun and they start to like turn around and I notice blue. Apparently, I'm learning this like this week for the first time. You all knew this already, clearly. And there's not just blue, there's all kinds of blues that the sun is like sparkling. And I'm just like, whoa. And in my own head, like How Great Thou Art starts to play. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a moment. I have no idea what's going on in the table in front of me. No idea if people have come back. I'm just like staring at the birds. The moment ends when this one bird kind of hopping around and kind of shook its feathers a little bit and then proceeded to poop all over the top of the umbrella and empty its bowels. Clearly the burgers did not agree with this bird because it just exploded right there on the top of the umbrella. And I was just like, serene moment, poop moment over. And you know the first thing I thought of? That's like Israel in Exodus 15. Like, no joke. It was my second thought after the poop moment. I was like, disgusting Israel. Disgusting. Why do I say this? What just happened in Israel is one of the most marvelous, stunning moments that's ever happened in the history of the world. God parted the Red Sea for them. He fought for them. The Lord is his name. The Lord, the man of war, fought for his people, saved them, destroyed their enemies. They walked through on dry ground, safe on the other side. the first 21 verses of chapter 15, they're soaring in praise, singing the song of Moses about the Lord has thrown the horse and the rider into the sea. And what happens in verse 22? Disgusting rebellion. Their triumph turns to trouble. Their glory turns to grumbling. Their delight turns to despair as soon as they enter into the wilderness. So today we will witness a beautiful moment come to an end because of the sin of Israel. But as disgusting and as revolting and as nasty as this sin is, God is there. God enters into it, redeems it, teaches his people a massive lesson, and into all that is bitter, he brings sweetness. There's so much to glean here, church. It's a very short passage, but we're going to try to mine for gold. 3 points today, 3 headings. See first, what took place? Verse 22 through the beginning of verse 25. Here's how our passage begins. Then Moses made Israel set out from the Red Sea, and they went into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days into the wilderness and found no water. When they came to Marah, they could not drink the water of Marah because it was bitter. Therefore it was named Marah. And the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What shall we drink?" And he cried to the Lord. And the Lord showed him a log, and he threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. What a weird moment, right? Like, this is every guy's dream, throwing stuff into water, right? I mean, is that just me? No. All right, it's David and I. There you go. There's a few others, throwing stuff into water. It's awesome, big stuff. Yeah, this is great. Notice how it begins in verse 22. Moses didn't just leave with Israel. God didn't lead the people out of the Red Sea area into the wilderness. Notice it says Moses made them leave. Why are these words used here? What do they teach us? I think this leads us to understand that Israel didn't want to leave the shore of victory. They were so taken up with what God had done, the dead Egyptians everywhere, their safety, the victory, the triumph God had done over all their enemies. And they were lingering in the exhilaration of the moment, and they didn't want to leave. They wanted to stay right there. But Moses is like, guys, this is great. This is great. I sang about this. We all sang about this. This is not the promised land. We can't stay here. I mean, we don't get the words he was using, but it was probably something like that. God is taking us onward into the promised land, and the road there goes through that wilderness. Let's go. And so he made Israel leave. They go 3 days into the wilderness, and what happens? They can't find water. Think about that. 3 days without water. Have you guys ever gone 3 days without water? Maybe a better question, have we ever gone 3 days without anything? I mean, real, honest question. 3 days without water is pretty much the limit of human capability, of endurance. So you can sense what this moment was like for them. The dust of the wilderness is in their throats and eyes. Their children are crying. Their animals, the livestock, are weakening. The wonder of the Red Sea moment is now replaced with the weariness of the wilderness, the creeping doom of their own death, very short, near at hand. And then they see it. You see the text there, verse 23, 24? They see water. Can you imagine them? Water! Water! There it is! Can you imagine them running to it in all their thirst and just trying to scoop it all into their mouth, but then they get it in there and they're spitting it all back out because it's undrinkable. It tastes bitter. One translation for bitter has poisonous. It's unfit for human consumption. So what do? They call it Marah. The reader of the Bible will know that word. It shows up later on in the book of Ruth. Naomi, for her own suffering, will take this word Marah onto herself as her name. In a sense, she's identifying with all the suffering that she has endured. She is Marah for the first whole half of that book. This is the word they use to describe this seeming oasis that is poisonous to them. Once they taste the bitterness, what do? They grumble. They grumble. Crazy fact, I know, we think this word happens all the time in the Bible, the grumbling Israelites. Well, it is the first occurrence of that word right here in our text. In the Bible so far, grumbling has not occurred yet. It is certainly not the last, right? Because this word will be something of the banner over all of Israel in their wilderness, adventure, journey, wandering. What's the one thing that describes them? Grumblers. Grumbling against God and Moses. But, before we come down too hard, we should come down hard on them for being so silly here. We have to take a moment and understand that this struggle, this moment, was fairly legitimate for them. And think about their choices. 3 days without water, how are you doing? Like, you see me 3 hours without food, I'm probably similar to this. 3 days without water. To them, when they get to Marah, the choice is drink or die. That's all they know. And so to them, they feel like they're back at the Red Sea, trapped, and the only thing they can see is death. And so they grumble. What should they have done? They should have prayed. They should have cried out to God. If any people knows God by now, goodness. Israel knows God. They knew that God answers prayer. He heard them during slavery. He sent Moses to them, and now they're free. They know that God is mighty. They know that God is powerful. They know that God can do wonders, and they witnessed it firsthand. And not to mention the fact that Moses is not the one leading this trip into the wilderness. What's leading them? The pillar of cloud and fire. All they had to do was look up. Oh yeah, the God who saved us is the God who's leading us. If He brought us here, it logically follows He can take care of us here. But no, they don't do that. They grumble. Specifically, they grumble against Moses. What shall we drink? Just pause right here. Do you see yourself in them yet? Some of you are nodding that you do. Grumbling might be humanity's favorite pastime. It really might be. We grumble, Christians grumble about all kinds of things. Little things and really big, devastating things. Let's name some of them, the little things. At home, wives, you grumble about all that your husbands have left undone. Maybe rightfully so, but there's grumbling. there. Husbands, you might grumble when your wife gets home from the grocery. You come home and find out she did not get you Cocoa Puffs. Get you the right kind of cereal. I want Raisin Bran. I don't eat grape nuts. Then you look at your kids' rooms and you say, why haven't you cleaned this up yet? You had all day to do this, and it still looks like a pig pen in here. You're not doing anything else. You're not going outside until this room is clean. Then you walk out of there, and the fridge breaks. The microwave is too old. The washer and dryer start to not wash or dry. And all sorts of things start to happen. At home, little things. Christians grumble about little things at church, too. I don't like how this was handled, how that was done. Why'd we sing this song instead of that song? Why does the church coffee taste so bad? Why does the pastor wear such weird shoes? I've heard that before. Not these shoes. Other things. Why are our services start so early? Why do they go so late? I'm late to Golden Corral every week because of you. These are all little things, right? We also grumble about big things. Sins that we cannot seemingly overcome. They keep plaguing. We keep doing. We keep giving in. Relational discord, dissatisfaction at work, misfortune in love, family strife, friendships dissolving, chronic conditions continuing to plague, and on and on and on. Are you a grumbler? When you get put in the furnace and you feel the pressure, you taste the bitterness, and you feel like the choice for you, at least in that moment, is drink or die. Is your knee-jerk reaction prayer? Or is it whoever is nearest to you is going to get an earful from me? We all encounter bitter moments in life. We need to be warned that those bitter moments don't make us bitter people. It's so simple, but it's so true. This is Paul's argument in 1 Corinthians 10. You know, he quotes this passage in 1 Corinthians 10 to a crazy church full of sin. I mean, I don't know why anybody these days would name a church Corinth Baptist or Corinth Methodist, Corinth Community. No! Don't name your church Corinth. It's a messed up place. But in it, Paul quotes this passage and says, don't be grumblers like them, lest you fall into all kinds of similar sins. Be instructed at their bad example. Don't grumble. But I wonder if you see the issue here at the end of Exodus 15. What's the real issue for Israel in the passage? I'll tell you, the problem wasn't the water. The problem was them. It was them. John Calvin, you heard me mention him earlier, the French reformer of the 16th century. On his commentary in Exodus, he pulls that thought out and he says the following: God could have given them sweet water to drink at first. There's a thought. But by giving them the bitter water, he was making their own bitter hearts known to them. So this is a test. The Lord is testing his people in the wilderness. He wants his people to know what? Them. He wants them to know them. He knows them. He wants them to know them. And so he puts them in a bitter trial. And they grumble. Well, what does he do? What does God do in response? You notice what he doesn't do? He does not rebuke them for their grumbling. Is that not like baffling? Normally he does. Here he does not. Rather, in great kindness, he enters in. Look at the start of verse 25. Not all the people are grumbling. How glorious to see this spiritual leader. The whole community is grumbling. What's Moses doing? Praying. That's hard. Let me just tell you. When sheep are biting you, nipping at heels, elbows, ears, and they're coming on strong, you know what's the easiest thing to do? Give strength back. And be like, stop it! Moses gets it, and he gets to his knees, and he prays, God, what is happening here? We need water. Give us some water. He prays when the people grumble. And God responds in a unique way for sure, showing him a log. Or the original Hebrew word there for log could mean tree or big stick. And then he says, cast the log into the water so that the water becomes drinkable. So Moses has that fun man moment, throws it in, and the bitter water becomes sweet. What in the world is this? What a weird moment. Right? If you didn't grow up reading the Bible, you're coming to this kind of fresh. I didn't grow up reading the Bible. 20 years without this. I remember reading this for the first time going, what? He threw a log in the water and it's drinkable. But this is the big lesson for us today in this passage. The big lesson is God can turn what is bitter for you into something sweet. That's the huge lesson. More on that in a moment. There's a huge echo here of what's gone on in previous chapters, kind of all coming forward here in this moment as Moses throws the log in. Think about it. Moses, who is he? The one who, as an infant, was drawn up out of the waters of the Nile. Moses, who as an adult, later on was called back into Egypt and one day picked up a staff and hit the Nile. Drinkable turned undrinkable as the Nile turns to blood. And then later on, Moses, the deliverer, the prophet, the leader of the people, would lead Israel through the waters of the Red Sea. And here, it's once again Moses, who through God's leading, bitter waters are made sweet and drinkable. God's doing something here with this watery Savior in Moses. But what is this log that he throws in? If you have a study Bible, you can kind of just skim down there at the bottom right now. Or if you have books on Exodus at home, you can go read them. The debates abound about what log Moses threw in there. It's kind of humorous and silly, just trying to find a natural explanation for something that's clearly not. But the argument is like, surely there's some kind of root, grub, tree, or woodeny-ish plant that is native to this area that Moses just knew because he grew up kind of near this area in Egypt, and he knew that it has very salty, purifying properties, and if he threw this in the water, drinkable. It's a good question. Like, is there something like that? I'd want to know. Well, to date, no one has found such a plant yet. It doesn't exist. And so clearly, this is a supernatural wonder of God taking something common, doing with it something miraculous, making the bitter water sweet. This is the mercy of God giving to his grumbling people. He led them there. He let them feel the dire, bitter nature of this trouble. Why? He wants to teach them. to depend on Him. He pressed them so that they would come to the end of themselves and learn afresh how God can take care of them. And as it is so often true, right? You know this by your own life. It is only by first tasting what is bitter that leads us to enjoy God's sweet provision. That's what took place. That's all the events in our passage. It's interesting what happens next, our next heading, about what God was doing in all these events. Look at the rest of verse 25 and all of verse 26. There, the Lord made for them a statute and a rule. And there he tested them, saying, if you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do that which is right in his eyes, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer. These verses give us a unique angle and interpretation of all the events that we just talked about. And here we learn why God brought them into this trial. Why lead them to bitter water just to sweeten it after a time of distress? Why not, if you look at verse 27, why not just take them straight to Elim, where there's great abundance, not so far away? Why go to Marah first? It's simple. God was testing them. We've mentioned it. Here we see it again. God was testing them. God testing them not for him to learn information. Do we know this? God doesn't test to learn something he doesn't already know. Like we all had tests in school, right? That's what our teachers wanted to know. What do you know? I need to know what you know. It's not how God tests. God tests his people not for his own information, but for their own formation, for their own education. This is why God tests his people. And so by bringing Israel into the wilderness, class has begun. And God is the teacher. And the first lesson is this: what you do when you're deathly thirsty reveals who you are. Out of this test, you see the end of verse 25, comes a statute and a rule. What is this? Well, we're kind of in between things. Many people view it like this, like there's the Exodus out of Egypt, and then the next huge moment is Mount Sinai, where they receive the law of Moses, right? Huge moment. In between, there's no law yet. It's just kind of do what you want and go where the pillar leads you. But not so fast. Here we learn that God gives his people a law, a statute, regulations, commands that they have to live by even before the big law is coming. Why does he do this? Why does God give them a kind of ordering of their life here? Simple. To teach them how to do life with him. In other words, God is teaching them the ins and outs of covenant. He is their God. They are his people. They need to walk in his ways. They need to listen to his voice. They need to obey his commands. If they do, great blessing will come to them. They're learning that whole pattern that really becomes real and substantial later on, right here in a little bitty fashion. They are God's people. God is theirs. They must live then in a certain way. And then God even adds on to it at the end a profound reality. He says, I am the Lord, your healer. Some of you with maybe a Pentecostal background, recognize this is the phrase you probably heard, Jehovah Rapha. That's a name. It means God my healer. It's wildly abused, that idea, that reality, in all kinds of ways. That if you really listen, if you really obey God and really go after it and do this Christian thing, you'll never get sick. Your kids won't get sick. Everybody who's friends with you won't get sick. Blessing all around. That's not what's going on here. Clearly, that's not what's going on. Rather than going there, let's let the context of these verses and this scene define for us what it means for God to be our healer. And I think it means this. What God did to the waters, He will do to their hearts. It's all about the waters of Marah, bitter made sweet. And then God says, I am your healer. Walk in my ways. If you do, great blessing will come. None of the plagues that fell on the Egyptians and destroyed them will fall on you. Yes, I brought you into a plague of thirst, but what did I do? I gave you sweet water to drink because you are my people. The Lord, your healer. What He did to the waters, He can do for them. That's what God was doing in this whole scene. Lastly, look at verse 27, where God took them. Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees, and there they encamped by the water. When I first got to verse 27, you know my first thought that came to my head? If Moses couldn't get them to leave the Red Sea, you think they're going to leave Elim? I mean, they're in a straight-up paradise now, in a real oasis. Do you see the details here? After Marah comes Elim. After what is bitter comes what is sweet. 12 springs, likely foreshadowing 12 tribes. 70 palm trees. A number likely foreshadowing that will be used again and again and again and again and again in the Bible. Talk about completeness and perfection. Lesson, God abundantly provides for His people. But don't miss it. He didn't just lead them straight to Elim. They had to go through Marah first. Red Sea, Marah, Elim, wilderness, lots of wilderness, glory, promised land. The abundance of Elim is grace upon grace. It's more than enough. They would likely, though, like we joked about, they'd likely want to turn Elim into their permanent home. So Moses would have to remind them, we're still in the wilderness. I mean, I can only imagine what my family would do if I'm driving us on a road trip going somewhere and I pull into the nicest of rest stops. I mean, new trees, fancy tables, all sorts of refreshments, and maybe there's even food trucks there, and you're like, whoa, look at this. If you go north a little bit on I-75, there's some new rest stops that kind of feel like this. Some of them are real shady, right? You've been there. Somebody's like, whoa, I don't know if I should go to the bathroom in this place. Is there another rest stop? Looking it up. Like, okay, go to the next one. There are some new ones, though, that you're like, wow, look at this. What would happen? What would my family do if I pulled off and say, all right, guys, we're here. Get out. They'd be like, Dad's nuts. He's gone off the rocker again. This is what Israel is going to be tempted to do. So Moses is going to need to remind them, Elim as great as it is just a rest stop on the way to Canaan. The promised land is coming. We're still in the wilderness. Enjoy the provision, yes, but keep going. Keep going. And so they do. They keep going. Church, there is so much to pull out here, to apply to us. Let me just give you a handful, maybe two huge principles here. First, this passage for us is, it's like a GPS. If it's functioning right, it tells us where we are as Christians. Let me explain. Israel's experience here in their wandering teaches us about our own. So let me speak metaphorically here. We too walked through the Red Sea and were saved when God destroyed our great enemy in the devil. In the cross and his resurrection, he destroyed that and we were saved. And we stood on the other shore and watched it come back on our enemies, and we were safe. And we were saved, and we praised God. Our lips went to town praising God for who He is, for what He's done, for being the man of war for us, and fighting our biggest battles. That's what we did. But did we stay on the shore? No. The promised land awaits. But the promised land is not on the banks of the Red Sea. What's in between? The wilderness. As Israel had to go through the wilderness to get to Canaan, the promised land, so too the Christian, once saved, has to go through the wilderness of this fallen world before we come into glory with the Lord again. So this text reminds us where we are as Christians. To put it another way, think about Israel. Going through the wilderness was not necessary for them to be saved, right? They already were saved. But going through the wilderness was necessary for Israel to be sanctified. That's what they weren't. And God intended to shape and form His people in the wilderness and form them into a certain way before they come in to Canaan. The same is true with us. It's one thing to sing the praises of God after being saved by such a great God and experiencing the high and the exhilaration of that moment. It's another thing entirely to keep singing His praises in the wilderness testing. Yet sing we must. This text teaches us where we are as Christians. Israel was living in the in-between, and so are we. We have been saved. We are being led home, but we're not there yet. We're still on the road home. And God is using this road to shape us into who we need to be before that final day. This helps us have the right expectations. You know what I mean? If you put in your GPS or your maps, whatever app you use, and you want to go from Newport Richey to Maine, you will not expect yourself to be in Mississippi. If you look up and see a sign, "Welcome to Mississippi," something is wrong, right? You're expecting wrong things if you expect to go through Mississippi when you're going up the East Coast, right? This text does this for us. If we expect to be saved and go straight to heaven, we will be wildly surprised when we start to suffer and come into trials of various kinds. But if we expect salvation and homecoming to be the two ends of life, and all that's in between is the wilderness of this fallen world, we will expect suffering and trials and testing to be the norm, not something that is strange to us. This is our life now. But even in the midst of it, we know it won't always be like this. It won't always be bitter. There will come an end to the bitterness, and it will be sweet, sweeter than we know. That's the first thing the text does to us. I think it teaches us where we are as Christians. Second, I think the biggest lesson here is so simple. God can turn what is bitter to you into something sweet to you. What God did for Israel is stunning here. And it becomes all the more stunning when we realize that God desires to do the same thing for us. So, question, do you have bitter things in your life? Do you have hard things in your life that feel trapping, caught in them? Whatever it is for you, bring it to mind and think, for me right now, this is bitter. And then read the text and know God wants to take that very thing and make it sweet to you. What he did with Israel, he wants to do with us. How will God do this? As crazy as it sounds, he's going to do this with us by another tree. It was a log or tree. He did it with Moses. He chucked it in the water, drinkable. For Christians, for thousands of years now, God has used another tree to sweeten everything bitter to us. The tree of the cross. This tree is true healing for the soul. Here, we find healing in the truest and deepest sense of the word. Here, the Lord Jesus suffered for us. Here, he embraced the bitterness of death for us. Here, he cried out, "I thirst," so that we could be given a fountain of living water that never runs dry. Here, he gladly took up a cup of Marah, so that we could enjoy the blessings of Elam forever. Church, in the cross, God desires to sweeten everything that is bitter for the Christian. I really do mean this. And I don't want to tell lies. I really mean this. Everything you think is bitter right now that's hard for you, God wants to sweeten in the cross. But we need to go further and do more work. How? How does that happen? Here's some ways. General way, then specific. Generally, there is a way to apply the gospel to everything bitter to you right now. Are your relationships bitter? Any bitterness there? Look to the cross. See how Christ loved and gave himself for the church. Let his tree, an example on that tree, sweeten how you relate to other people. Is your job bitter? Look to the cross. See how Christ served and gave himself unto death. Have you done that yet in your job? Or are you just grumbling? Look to Christ and his tree for the example about how to be the best possible employee out of everyone. Is your health bitter? Look to the cross and see the one who was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Let his tree remind you that ultimate healing is found in Him and not in anything under the sun. Another way we could apply this to ourselves is there in verse 26. This is where God gave them a statute, and He said, if you will diligently listen to my voice, and you do what is right in my eyes, and give ear to my commandments, and keep all my statutes, I will bless you immensely. Guys, God really does want to sweeten all that's bitter to you. You know one way He's going to sweeten it? You obeying Him. You cannot expect to be sweetened by the grace of God if you disobey the commands of God. If you walk in obedience, your heart will be full of heaven and full of assurance. But you will have very low assurance, low joy, low gladness, low thriving in the Christian life if you have a very low level obedience to His commands. So yes, God can supernaturally just come and make all that is bitter to you sweet, like poof! And that's great! But one way that He does it also is when you hear a command from Him and you obey it instead of disobeying it. And your soul is filled with heaven. I think there are two of you here today, kinds of people. Some of you today are living by the waters of Marah. You're like in the thick of it, in the moment, in the bitterness, and you hate it, you feel it. You feel like Israel, drink or die. I'm about to die. I can't drink this. I'm at the end. If that's you, don't grumble. Look to the tree that God has provided. Look to Christ on the cross, and you will find your bitterness sweetening. You really can apply it to your situation. Others of you, though, you're not by Marah. You're at Elam, and you are loving it. You've had Marah in the past, and now you're at Elam, and you are sitting back in the lawn chair, and you were like, blessed! That's me! Look at all this provision. Look at all that God's doing, all this work, all this crazy stuff. Oh my gosh, my soul is filled with Him. If that's you, praise God. That's you. Drink deeply, because it doesn't last forever. Elam is still in the wilderness. You're not home yet. You know what's going to happen if you drink deeply at Elam? You'll be ready for the next Marah. What happens if you get all lazy and sluggish and slothful at Elam, where you're at now in the place of great blessing, and you're just sitting back high on the hog like, bring me another margarita? And then you leave it and you get to Marah, and you're like, God, where are you? He's like, I just gave you a year of Elam. What'd you do with it? You're not ready now because you didn't use the Elam I just gave you. If you're not home yet in heaven, the Elams will always fade because it's not heaven. It might be great. It might be a place of blessing, but it's just a rest stop on the long road home. Use the Elams well, because Marahs always come. The crows always poop on the umbrellas and ruin the serene moments. Pray with me.